Hi class, in this video you're going to learn how to write an introduction and a thesis statement for an essay. Now you can use this model for any kind of assignment that you get, such as a rhetorical analysis at the beginning of the semester or something like a proposal or a synthesis essay at the end of the semester. Now for this model you can use it in other classes too, such as psychology, literature, anthropology, whatever you're studying, you can use the same model for those kinds of courses too. So as you can see, I have my trusty sidekick behind me over here, Louis, to help us teach this lesson. All right, so first let's talk about what introduction should do. Well, it should acquaint the reader with the text and the issues, right? So imagine that someone finds your essay outside and they read the introduction. Well, they should know exactly what the issue is that you're going to be covering, what the text is that you're going to be talking about, what's the argument from that text, and then of course, what is your thesis statement. So it should situate the reader into the mindset you want them to be in so they can follow along with your argument. You also want to start very broad with an issue, get them into the right mindset as we noted, and then end with a thesis. You're also going to establish the voice of your essay. So is it serious? Is it comical? Are you trying to educate someone, convince someone, inform someone? And then, of course, the flow. So how smooth is it, right? Are the arguments lined up in the right way that someone can understand what you're talking about? So in order to do that, we're going to be using the inverted pyramid model. You can call it the inverted pyramid, the upside down triangle, or if you're hungry, the pizza slice. In any case, this is what we're going to be using to write our introduction, right? So at the very top here, you'll see on the left-hand side, you want to get very broad and then come to a specific point, which will be your thesis, right? So up top, the first third, you're going to cover the topic or issue that's talked about in the text. Then in the middle, what we'll talk about are called the 3 A's. So the author, the article, and the argument. And then finally, we have a thesis here at the end. Okay, so before we start writing though, we got to do an outline. Now I know a lot of us don't like doing outlines because it takes more time and we just want to start writing, but by organizing our thoughts, we can write a more effective essay. So let's pretend that you were assigned to watch Christopher Bell's TED Talk called Bring On the Female Superheroes. Now, it's a great TED Talk in of itself, and I'll put the link in the description so you can watch it on your own time. But let's just pretend, hypothetically, this is what you have to analyze. And just remember that this model can be used for other texts, such as video games, scholarly articles, movies, whatever it may be that you're analyzing, you can use the same kind of model. So for this Christopher Bell TED Talk, let's think of what the issue is, right? If we watch it, we'll be able to extract that. What are the 3 A's and what's the thesis that we're going to be arguing? Well, if we watch it, you can see that Bell argues that the issue is all about the lack of female superhero merchandise and how this affects young women. Okay, so we have to craft that some way in our introduction at the beginning. The 3 A's, quite simple to figure out. Just list out the information we need. The author is Christopher Bell. The article or the text, right, is called Bring On the Female Superheroes. And then the argument is what Christopher Bell says is there needs to be more female superhero merchandise for young women to have positive images. So this is something that he states, right? We can extract that and just put it out there. The thesis, we might not have the thesis down pat just yet, but that's okay. We can use a placeholder, such as text A uses blank and blank to argue a longer blank, right? So our thesis might come later on once we finish the first the first 2 sections of the introduction. We can write our thesis later, and that's fine. Okay, we have our information down, outlines ready. Let's start writing. So the first section of the inverted pyramid, we got to talk about the issue. As noted before, Christopher Bell talks about the lack of female superhero merchandise. Well, we need to talk about that initially to get the reader to understand what we're going to be confronting. Okay, in red, superheroes are a major element in American popular culture. Characters such as Iron Man, Spider-Man, and the Hulk can be found on everything from toys to television shows. However, female superheroes are usually missing when you look at store shelves or commercials. Okay, so my job here in the first third is to establish what's the issue. Now, I start with a statement about superheroes, American popular culture. Super simple, gets the reader to understand, okay, this paper is going to be about superheroes, pop culture. But as we get to the end here, I have a signpost that says, however, right? So in writing, these are called signposts. However, a change in the direction of our narration. However, female superheroes are usually missing when you look at store shelves or commercials. Okay, wow. Here's our issue, right? The controversy. So the reader should know exactly what the issue is all about now, right? Okay, moving on. So the middle, the three A's, the article, the author, and the argument. We got to list those down for the reader. So in blue here, in one sentence, short and sweet, I nail it. In Christopher Bell's TED Talk, Bring On the Female Superheroes, he argues that young women are negatively affected by the limited availability of female superhero merchandise. Okay, so as I noted, one sentence, short and sweet, we got it. Who's speaking? Christopher Bell. What's it called? Bring On the Female Superheroes. We also know what kind of text it is, which is helpful to the reader to understand. And then what is the argument that Bell states? So once again, in blue, we've nailed the middle part. All right, now thesis time. Let's talk about what a thesis is before we write one. Well, it should be a convincing argument with tension or risk as noted there. So we should write a thesis that someone could oppose, that someone could write a counter to, right? If there's not something to really argue against, then it's not a very good thesis. We should also have some kind of tension or what's called risk. We shouldn't just be simply stating a safe statement thesis, because then we're not really adding any kind of information to the debate or the topic or the conversation between scholars, right? So you got to have some kind of tension, something controversial, something that's thought-provoking, right? In the middle, 2 parts, right? Your argument is in 2 parts. So what is the argument? And then, of course, how and where will you support your argument? So you'll see that your thesis should also be a roadmap. It tells the reader what's going to happen after the introduction. It's a good roadmap. You should answer the prompt with your thesis. This PowerPoint might not cover what your professor is trying to get you to do. So you need to make sure your thesis answers that prompt, right? This is just a sample, so this is a disclaimer, not to say that this works for every essay, but you can use the model, the kind of direction it's using. What a thesis is not, it's not a fact, right? It's not an opinion, it's not a topic or a yes or no question. We want to have an argument, right? We want to have an argument with tension. So simple yes or no, that's not an argument, right? We need to have more risk. We need to have tension to that. Okay, now, like I said, think of your thesis statement as a roadmap. If you've never held a roadmap, as I'm finding out as I get older and my students, I teach new students, they say, what's a roadmap? Well, okay, think of Google Map directions. So the thesis statement is the roadmap or the directions. It tells the reader exactly where this essay is going to go in the body paragraphs. So keep that in mind, because you want your organization to go well in the essay. Okay, here are some formulas you can use. Now, the top 2 are pretty simple. The bottom's a little more complex. You can choose whichever one you want to do. Where it says text A, you would put the title of the text, right? X and Z, you would put what kind of supports you're going to be using. And then finally, what's at risk is the very end here. In the middle, same kind of idea. By presenting X, text A proves something bigger, right? So this is where the text comes in. What's the confrontational, the controversial thing you're going to say? This last thesis, excuse me, is a little bit more complex, right? It's more conscious that there's a reader already at hand. It's already anticipating that there's going to be a counter argument there. So it says, while some people or some believe that blank, text A challenges opposes this view by blank, right? So this is a really complex thesis. Some might call it the reversal thesis or the counter argument thesis. In any case, you can use that one if you want to be more complex, right? Okay, so here are some examples of those theses in action, right? At the top here, we have one that's used for rhetorical analysis. So Bell uses ethos and logos to persuade the audience that female superhero merchandise is necessary to help girls develop high self-esteem. So this is the kind of support we're using, right? Our first body paragraph will be about ethos. Second will be about logos. So here's the roadmap. And then this is what's at risk, right? Because if we simply stated Bell uses ethos and logos, that's just a statement. That's not much of an argument, right? Now, we want to put something to risk. So here's where our risk comes in. Second one there. Same idea. We talk about what does he use? But then, of course, at the end here is what's at risk. We're saying that Bell proves that the lack of female superhero merchandise detrimentally affects young women. Excuse me. Then finally, while some believe that action figures are just toys, so we're thinking about what would that reader already be consciously thinking about this topic, right? It's good to do that because then you can start off on the stronger rhetorical foot and already counter them. So Most folks would just think that action figures are just toys. Bell challenges this view by analyzing psychological studies by Ramos and Harris that link childhood self-esteem to representation in pop culture. So you can see how this last one is a lot more complex. And it already starts thinking about the reader, starts thinking about what they would argue against our thesis, right? So this is definitely one that has a lot of tension. We're making two arguments here. We're already trying to say, okay, you're going to think this, but I'm going to tell you this, right? So you're already beginning an argument within your thesis. That's great. So you can choose whichever one of these you'd like to put in your essay, whatever you're comfortable with, that's fine. Here's how it could look, right? So in a couple of minutes, we have an introduction drafted up. We can, of course, tinker with it, cut parts, make it more economical, more punchy, whatever you want to do. So we have our introduction listed here. Okay, some final points, right? Again, as we noted, follow the roadmap in your introduction for your body paragraphs. So what you listed in your thesis, if you say, I'm going to argue that this essay does X, Y, and Z, well, then your body paragraph should follow X, Y, and Z. The first body paragraph should be X, then Y, and Z. So you should follow it, right? Organization's key to having an effective essay. All the future points need to support the thesis, right? So everything you write after that introduction should support the thesis. So remember to bring all those points effectively to support what you're trying to say. Help corroborate that stance that you're putting up. Then finally, what's a nice thing to do that I like to do when I'm writing is I'll write my thesis, I'll print it out, and I'll put it above my desk. Or I will keep it highlighted on the word processor. So I know, what am I arguing? Is what I'm writing right now helping that? Is it helping support it? Is it helping making it strong? Is it making my case look evident? Well, if not, I should erase it because it's not really helping me out. So these are some final points to think about as you continue on. In the next video, I'll teach you how to write body paragraphs, and this will continue the idea of how the thesis is like a roadmap. Okay, so hopefully that helped y'all out and you're not falling asleep like Louis back there. But I'll see you in the next video so you can learn about body paragraphs.